So a lot of you have been having a lot of questions about my draft classes and draft classes in general, like why the projections are so far off, why some players are rated high but they're projected low in draft classes, so on and so forth. And that's why I'm here to go ahead and make this video and kind of break down some of those things. I'm going to show you how to create a draft class and get into some of the other highly questioned things in the comment section. So first off, when you start a franchise, once you get through preseason and everything and you start regular season, so the first thing you want to do is where it says hire and assign scouts, you want to press A or X on PlayStation on that. And then you want to go to prospects and you want to press A again. And before I go any further, let me mention that before you even get to this part, once you advance to the regular season, there's going to be a prompt that pops up that asks you if you want to randomly generate a class or if you want to download one from your local device or download from the download center, and you just choose whichever one you make. Now, none of these players are created from scratch. There's no option to create a draft class completely from scratch. What you are doing is editing the players that are generated to be the realistic player that you want. If you haven't created a draft class yet, you'll keep the random generated class and then you'll go in there by pressing A on prospects like we just did. And in order to start editing these players to the real players, this is where you'll click down on the left stick and then this message will pop up and it'll again ask you a similar thing. Download from the download center, edit the draft class, import local call. So you'll go to edit draft class, press A. And normally what I do at this point is I go position by position all the way down till I get all the way to the end to punters. So you select whichever player it is you're trying to edit. So we're gonna take this guy, Sean Terra, and we'll change him to, I don't know, Tom Brady. So you just go on and edit like you're creating a player. And you go on from there. And you do this with each prospect. And you can go through and you could change their number, you could change their handedness, you could change the school, styles, QB style, three quarters 4, 3/4 5, so on and so forth. Like I said, you can edit anything that you want to edit with this player. You can change their development trait, change their speed. You want to make them 99 speed, you can make them 99 speed, 99 acceleration, 99 agility, etc, etc. And then what you do is you save changes, you back out. Takes a little minute, and there, as you can see it, he's been edited. And then you do this with every player that you're trying to edit, every position, so on and so forth. And when you're ready to back out or say you need a break, you just press B or O or circle, circle on PlayStation. And then this will pop up. It'll say draft class edited. Edits have been applied to your draft class. Would you like to upload to the download center or export to a local draft class file? So I typically, after I edit each full group, I'll save it every time or export it every time to my local device. But when I'm just editing through and say I didn't finish a group, I'll just save and exit. So then you back out. That's it. And then whenever you want to go back in there, you do the same process over again, edit draft class, and you go back and go to the next player. Now, as far as the projections are concerned, this is one of the main things. A lot of people question why the projections are so off. As you can see, these players are already at a preset projection. No matter if we edit a player higher than a player that's above him, this isn't going to change. So if we go all the way down here to this guy Stevens and say we go and we edit all of his ratings, give him everything. We give him 99, everything. Change the direction, screw it, give him 99. Why not? Let's go down here to throw power, 99. Why not? Accuracy, 99. Everything, 99. We got an Oprah giveaway here. Give him everything, 99, right? All right, so we'll back out and see what his rating is. It's probably going to be high. And okay, there you go. So his rating, and I would never create a prospect like this. I try not to let a prospect get no higher than 80. And if he is 80, he's got to be a top 10 projected pick. But nonetheless, that's neither here nor there. He's a 92 overall, but you can see he's still projected to be round 5, pick 15, even though he's higher than these guys up here, and they're still projected round 1, pick 3. That's never going to change. That's never going to change no matter how good you edit the other players are. It's not going to change. Even in a season, as you advance over time and these players, the storylines show that they're playing games and they're improving throughout the college season, their projections never change. The only way you could change any kind of projection is if you go down here, like, so say we take Stevens and you press Y to adjust. You can move him up ahead. So we can move him up ahead of Brady. Press Y to insert him there. Why it didn't put him there, I have no clue. Let's try that again. That's weird. All right, so there it is. It glitched out. So now, once we put him ahead of him, now it has him round 1, pick 3, and scheduled to be the best quarterback of this class. So that's how you make your adjustments. Other than that, if you don't manually adjust the order, then they're going to stay like that, and they're going to stay projected like that throughout the season. So that's the only way you can kind of make those adjustments. Other than that, if you don't, then they stay projected where they're projected, and you just kind of got to go off of that. But if anybody download my classes, if you do not create your own class, but anybody download my classes, I typically create best to worst, because when I'm kind of copying over the class from my college football dynasty into Madden, it's going from best to worst, top to bottom anyways. So I don't always shift my guys around, but I tell the users in my league that if you want to know who's what, just go from top to bottom when you're looking position by position, and you'll know who's higher than who. Now, the combine numbers, the pro day numbers, they're going to be accurate. Their speed, if they're fast, they're going to run a 4.2, 4.3, so on and so forth. If they're slow, then, 4.7, 4.8. It is what it is. So that's going to be accurate, but overall projection, it's not going to be accurate unless you manually move those guys. That's how you create a draft class, and that's some of the aspects about the draft class that people might not know. Also, another thing, when it comes to creating my draft classes, I'm creating directly from College Football 26. Just like last year, I was creating directly from College Football 25. I say that to say this: if a player is balling out in real life, like Mendoza, for instance, right now, Mendoza's balling out. He's a top Heisman candidate, so on and so forth. At the time that College Football 26 came out and I started my dynasty, Mendoza wasn't nowhere on the radar. So naturally, players like that won't be top in my draft class, or might not even be in my draft class if they weren't on the radar. Like I mentioned in my last video, my draft classes now, compared to what they were in the past, they are simply a export from college football and an import to Madden. So wherever the rosters and ratings were at the time of my dynasty being created, that's what you're gonna get coming from college football over to Madden. And also like I mentioned in my last video, if you don't like that and you want something more realistic and true to life, by all means, there's plenty of users out there that are creating draft classes based on real life projections for the 2026 draft, for the 2027 draft. This draft class is simply an export and import, and it works better for me and it works better for the users in my league for one simple reason. When you're creating a realistic draft class that is true to real life, you're only gonna get about 2 classes deep. You're not gonna know who's coming out in year 3 or year 4 or year 5 versus having an export and import. I'm gonna know every time because I'm seeing the players that's leaving in each class in each year of my dynasty, and I can just transfer them over into Madden. And yeah, I know what a lot of y'all would say. Oh, well, once you get to 4 and 5, that's generic players right there, so it doesn't make any sense. You might as well just use the generic players that Madden generates. There's a difference. The users in my league might not know the players. Some might if they follow my dynasty. If you follow my dynasty, you can see who some of these players are, and you'll know when you go in my draft class and be like, oh, that's that guy that was balling out in RIOS's dynasty rebuild. So you can follow along and see what players are what, and you'll get an idea for who's good and who's not and who to draft. But you're always gonna know exactly who's coming out each year because I'm going directly off of my college football 26 dynasty and putting it into Madden. Versus if you're trying to create a realistic draft class, don't expect to go past 2 years because you're only gonna have a realistic draft class for 2 seasons. After that, nobody's gonna know who's coming out in the 3rd year or in the 4th year. Whereas I'm gonna know exactly who's coming out just based off of who's leaving in each year of my dynasty in college football. So that's how that works on my end. Also, another thing that I've failed to mention in my last draft video about the creation process of my draft class, I have to mention this too because this was questioned last year and in some of my draft classes, is that I stash superstar X Factor players at each position, one at each position. I stash one near the bottom of the draft. So there was people questioning me last year, even though I stated that in one of my draft videos. Why is such and such way at the bottom undrafted, but he's projected to be a superstar, or he's a superstar X Factor? I stash players like that for 2 reasons at the back of the draft. For one, in prior Madden games, a lot of our users would trade and try to collect a ton of 1st and 2nd round picks, some 3rd, and they draft the first 3 rounds and get out, and then next thing you know, it only be like 2 or 3 users sticking through a 7-round draft to draft. Nobody had a reason to stick around. Whereas once I started implementing this and I'm letting people know, hey, I stashed guys at the back end of this draft. So if you want to leave, by all means, go ahead and leave. You probably gonna miss out on a sleeper. Ever since I started doing that, that started keeping some of the guys around a lot longer because they want to see who's going to be available later on in the draft that can possibly be a superstar or a superstar X Factor. And the second reason for me doing it is because you legit have sleepers that get drafted in the 6th, 7th round, sometimes undrafted, that end up turning out to be superstar players in the league. So that is why I stash X Factors late in the draft. I really don't put any X Factors for any of the really good players. If they're really good players, I let them be stars, superstars, etc. But X Factors, I save those stats. Every now and then I'll put a X Factor as a good player, but it's not a lot. I don't put a bunch of them. I normally stash sleeper X Factors near the end of the draft so that somebody can be rewarded for sticking through the whole draft and scouting and drafting their players to their team. That's gonna do it for this episode. I'm long-winded as hell. I've talked enough. I just had to make sure I addressed quite a few things, quite a few questions that I often get asked in the comment section on YouTube and TikTok. If you found this video useful, by all means, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button, click that notification tab so you can stay up to speed with more draft content pertaining to Madden 26, or if you want to keep up with college football 26 content, I'll have tips, tricks, tutorials, updates for both games going forward, franchise and dynasty content, you name it, we'll have it here. So again, I appreciate you all for tuning in. That's been my time. Till next time. Peace.